Bonjour et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le vendredi 5 mars. Permettez-moi de commencer avec l'agenda de la présidente pour la semaine prochaine. Lundi dans l'après-midi, la présidente von der Leyen participera à la cérémonie pour la Journée internationale des femmes organisée dans la plénière du Parlement européen. Mardi dans l'après-midi, comme chaque semaine de plénière du Parlement, la présidente présidera la réunion hebdomadaire du Collège. Mercredi, elle participera à la cérémonie de signature de la déclaration conjointe avec les présidents du Parlement et le Premier ministre du Portugal, au nom du Conseil, sur la conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe. Puis, jeudi, la présidente recevra le Premier ministre de la Croatie, Andrej Plenković. Et vendredi, la présidente retrouvera par vidéoconférence les premiers ministres de l'Estonie, de la Lettonie et de la Lituanie. Je passe maintenant la parole à Christiane qui a une annonce à propos de la Journée internationale des femmes.
Thank you, Eric. On Monday, we will be celebrating International Women's Day. Ahead of Monday, the Commission just published a statement which recalls that, and I quote, "The past year was a difficult one. The COVID-19 pandemic has spared nobody and was particularly challenging for women around the world. Doctors, nurses, teachers, shop assistants, jobs often held by women, have found themselves at the front line of the pandemic. All this while taking on greater responsibilities at home." Unquote. We would like to take this opportunity to, and I quote again, thank women for their bravery, their compassion, and their contribution in fighting this crisis, also by keeping our societies, care systems, and most essential services running. Progress is hard won, but easily lost. We must work for Europe to remain a trailblazer in women's rights. Backsliding is not an option, and we will continue to push forward. Unquote. We also just published our 2021 report on gender equality in the EU. The report shows the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women. And we should be able to see this here in the background. The report shows that women were at the front line fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. So 76% of healthcare and social care workers are women, and 86% of personal care workers are women. At the same time, women were often absent in the COVID-19 decision-making. 85% of national COVID-19 task forces were made up mainly of men. Let me remind you that the Commission is leading by example here. The Commission's task force for the COVID-19 crisis is led by President von der Leyen and includes 5 other commissioners, 3 of whom are women. You can find more interesting facts and figures online. We just published a press release on the report and also the statement that I mentioned on our press corner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. Now let's move on to Vivian, who also has news, but on a regional policy project.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, good afternoon. The European Commission has approved an investment of over 63 million euros from the Cohesion Fund to provide better access to drinking water and improved sewerage in the district of Burgas in East Bulgaria. This integrated project will improve the efficiency and sustainability of existing facilities by reducing leakage as well as operating costs and improving connections, therefore improving the quality of life of nearly 333,000 inhabitants of the area. It also, of course, helps to achieve higher environmental standards, ensure nature conservation and compliance with the European legislation. And as usual, you will find more information on our EU-funded investments in Bulgaria, in the open data platform, and in our today's daily news. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Finally, before moving on to your questions, I have a housekeeping point to make. You might remember that some days ago we mentioned here that the process of accreditation of Brussels-based journalists would close at the end of February. Now, we have extended the deadline until 15 March to allow the colleagues who haven't done so to apply for a new accreditation or to renew their accreditation. Remember, this is the interinstitutional badge that grants you access to the Berlaymont, but also to the Parliament and the Council, and basically that signifies that you are a Brussels-based, Brussels-accredited journalist. So if you have not completed the process by 15 March, you will unfortunately not be able to participate in our online press events from then on. So I would really urge those of you who have not yet taken the steps to renew their accreditation to do so as quickly as possible. And with this, we are ready for your questions, and I pass the floor to Fabio.
Yes, hi, thank you for the floor. I have a question on environment, because yesterday the Vice President Timmermans, during an audition in the EU Parliament, said that the Commission are working on a package named 50 for 55 in order to achieve the EU climate target. So now the question is why the package is named like this if the negotiations on that are still ongoing, and when this package are going to be approved, and maybe you can tell us what are going to be inside. And last question, it will be a communication or some other kind of instrument? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and a refreshing issue, taking us away from our usual menu for the midday. Vivian.
Thank you very much, Fabio. And indeed, it is a key priority for us this year to make sure that we deliver on this Fit for 55 package. Where does the title come from? It comes from the proposals we made last year in increasing our ambition for 2030 by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 55% compared to the 1990 levels. And this is something which is vital in our goal of achieving the climate neutrality by 2050, which is, of course, as you know, the big overarching goal of the European Green Deal. For the proposals that will come in June this year, most probably, I would like to refer you to the Commission work program, which gives a very detailed overview of what we have in there. But there are different proposals covering various legislative acts from the area of energy, of climate, as well as transport, and so on. So,
thank you very much. Now, if you've been paying attention to our press material over the past weeks and months, you will have seen that Fit for 55 is absolutely not a new title. It is something that we have coined. It is a term that we have coined already quite some time ago, and which reflects also the results of the European Council, which adopted this objective. Okay, are there other questions for Vivian on environment, please? Please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. I've noted down the names of journalists who had raised their hand before, so don't worry, we will come back to you. But only keep your hand raised if it is a question on environment. So I see two hands raised, and we go to Jorge.
Eric, I hope you can hear me well. So I have a question on trade, please.
No, Jorge, I'm sorry. I've just asked whether to unraise your hand unless you have a question on environment. So we will come back to you. I've noted down your name. Don't worry. Lise.
Yes, you can come back to me because it's not regarding environment either.
All right, we're fine. So I go back to James Franey, who was first in the list. James.
Thank you very much, Eric, for taking my question. Obviously, I'd like to ask about the issue of vaccine exports with what happened yesterday with Australia. The Australian Health Minister, Greg Hunt, was quoted this morning, I think by Reuters, saying that, quote, "We have asked the European Commission to review this decision." So my questions for you today are really, has that request been acted upon? When will we see a decision? And if so, what might it be? Thank you.
Please, Miriam.
Thank you. We are not aware of any specific request from the health minister. What I can tell you is that EVP Dombrovskis held a video call this morning with his counterpart, the trade minister, and during the call, which was already planned, it was not specific on this topic, but they did discuss the export authorization mechanisms, where the EVP explained the functioning of the system, as well as the systematic under-delivery by Astrazeneca on its EU contract, and that the Commission with the Member States are working to address this issue. And he also reassured that for those companies that are honoring their contract arrangements with the EU, there is no issue with the export authorizations, including with Australia.
Thank you very much. So let us stay on the issue of export authorizations. Yeah, you have to raise your hand if you want to follow up, James. Please raise your hand, because I can't follow the chat all the time. So please, go ahead with your follow-up.
I do apologise, I'd forgotten that, sorry. Yeah, so just a follow-up for Miriam. So there was a discussion between the Trade Minister of Australia and VP Dombrovskis. In that chat, did the Australian government tell the European Commission, or ask the European Commission, I should say, to change their minds about this decision, yes or no? Thank you.
James, I just gave you the readout of the meeting. This was what was discussed, and yeah, that's it. I cannot give any further comments.
Okay, we move to David.
Oui, merci David Carretta, Radio Radical, j'allume ma caméra. Je voulais poser deux questions, si je peux. La première, on a lu sur la presse italienne une chiffre différente par rapport à ce qu'on a lu ailleurs, d'une première un premier envoi qui était bloqué de 250 000 doses et un deuxième apparemment de 500 000 doses. Je voulais savoir si c'est correct ou s'il y a d'autres décisions qui ont été prises par rapport aux exportations demandées par Astrazeneca. Et Myriam, si tu pouvais nous faire un cadre complet en termes de chiffres évidemment sur combien d'autorisations ont été données jusqu'à maintenant et s'il y a un cadre aussi pour les différents pays. Merci.
Yeah.
Oui, merci. On peut juste confirmer les blocages de 250 000 doses dont on parlait hier à la presse. Il n'y a pas eu d'autres rejets dans le cadre des mécanismes d'autorisation d'exportation. En ce qui concerne les totales, on communique d'une façon régulière et les derniers chiffres qu'on a communiqués justement aux États membres cette semaine et qui comprend la période d'application depuis l'entrée en vigueur du mécanisme le 30 janvier jusqu'au 1er mars, comprend 174 approbations des exportations vers 30 pays. Je peux lire les pays qui sont concernés. Il y a aussi l'Australie d'ailleurs dans ces pays. Argentine, Australie, Bahreïn, Canada, Chine, Colombie, Costa Rica, République dominicaine, Équateur, Hong Kong, Japon, Koweït, Macao, Malaisie, Mexico, Nouvelle-Zélande, Oman, Panama, Pérou, Philippines, Qatar, République de Corée, Arabie Saoudite, Singapour, Afrique du Sud, United Arab Emirates, UK, États-Unis et Uruguay. Alors, juste pour confirmer qu'on est un gros exportateur de vaccins, on est quand même un important player dans ce domaine.
Merci. Autre question sur ce sujet. James.
Hello, Eric. Sorry about that quick delay. Yes, a question on the same subject, please. Isn't it strange to ban vaccine exports when the EU or Europe in general isn't using all of the supplies it already has? But what message to countries like Japan and Canada, other allies who've raised concerns about the mechanisms, what message does this send to them, and are you going to try and reassure them? And France has said that they'd be ready to impose their own export ban. Isn't there a risk that this could escalate into a vaccine trade war, which Bernd Lange, the chair of the European Parliament's Trade Committee, said recently? Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. The message is sent, is a message, an internal message, actually. It is sent to the company. The message is very clearly, as the President has said on many occasions, that we expect companies with which the European Union has signed advanced purchasing agreements to do their utmost to comply with the contracts, with the delivery contracts that they have with the member states. And I think that you will certainly agree with me in finding that the list of countries that have been mentioned by Miriam as having already received doses from the European Union as being very impressive. And to that list, you can add as well a list of 92 countries for which no export authorization is actually in place, and the COVAX mechanism, which is there to provide doses to a whole series of partner countries of the European Union, indeed right across the world. So let's not try to shift the situation here. The fact is that the European Union is a major exporter of vaccine doses, and we have always said that we were actually in intense discussions with the company in order to ensure the respect of the schedule of deliveries, because EMA has authorized this vaccine, and we are urging member states to use it. And you have seen recently that member states that had, for specific reasons, for a while, not recommended the use of the vaccine for a certain age group or for certain types of groups have now started to reverse these decisions and are encouraging the use of the vaccine. So we believe that this vaccine is an important element of our portfolio, and we therefore are expecting the delivery of the agreed doses. James, you have a follow-up.
Yes, and thank you for the follow-up, and thank you for that comprehensive answer. It's just, I suppose, it's precisely because the EU is a major exporter of vaccines that countries like Canada, South Korea, Japan, who have already raised concerns, could be getting a little nervous. I mean, is there any sort of outreach to reassure them?
The fact is that we are working with the companies in order to ensure that they deliver the doses that are foreseen for the European Union. And for all those companies that are doing that, there are no problems with exports. And therefore, even as we speak, export decisions continue to come in and are being processed, and exports are being authorized. So I'm sure that the countries concerned are seeing the fact, are actually experimenting that the deliveries of vaccines from the European Union continue. Let us continue on this issue. If there are other questions, Rafaela. Rafaela, you have an issue with your mic source, it seems. Go ahead.
Now it works. Now it works. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Two quick questions. First, do you know where the doses are right now? Because the Italian media reports say that the doses might still be in the company near Rome. Other sources say they are already in Belgium. And the second question, what do you expect AstraZeneca to do with these doses? Do you expect the company to forward the 250,000 doses now to EU countries? Thank you.
Thank you. So the first thing to say is we do not track the doses across Europe. That is really not our business. What Italy and the European Union have done basically is not to authorize the export of a certain number of doses to a specific country. The doses remain the property of the company. We are not tracking its whereabouts, and therefore this is a question that you need to ask. You need to ask the company. Again, we do not take a decision that says those 250,000 doses must go to X or Y. That's not our business. Our business is to say a decision has been taken by the Italian authorities that we have supported on exports because the assessment is that progress needs to be made on the delivery to EU countries. And this is basically the conversation that we will continue to have with the company. Louise.
Yes, do you hear me?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. I have a couple of follow-ups as well. The first one, are you aware of any other decisions in other countries apart from Italy? Are decisions underway to further block shipments of vaccines from Astrazeneca? Also, could you please share the number and the list of countries with us that you just read out? And thirdly, among all these shipments that were approved for export, were there any from AstraZeneca prior to this one? And why was it approved, if so, early on and not now? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so I confirm that we have, as Eric mentioned, we have received other requests, but we are not aware of any new rejection yet. But of course, we will see in due time when we have the final decisions. The short list, of course, very happy to share with you, Luis. If you can send me an email, I have been sharing it with many journalists already, so just send me an email and I will make sure you get the latest figures. And then on the details of individual companies, we do not provide, as you know, the details of individual shipments because this is one of the requirements of the regulation that we cannot provide the names of the companies. But yeah, we have received a few requests from a few companies, but again, I cannot provide the details for confidentiality reasons.
Thank you. Angela.
Yes, good morning, thank you. I wanted to know, how do you explain the behavior by AstraZeneca? I mean, we are talking about a company who has not respected the contract with the EU in delivering the doses and dares to ask to export a certain number of doses to countries extra EU, not considering the new regulation decided by the European Commission and by the European leaders about the export. I mean, how do you explain, do you think there is something that reassures them about the possibility to obtain the authorization? How do you explain their behavior? Thanks.
Angela, I'm sorry, I'm not in the business of trying to explain the behavior, as you say, or the actions of individual companies. This is really something that you need to ask the company. Now, it's obvious that, as we have been saying, companies have been signing contracts with customers across the world, and therefore feel compelled to try to deliver doses to their different clients. But as to the specific thinking behind that particular export authorization request, really, I'm not in a position to go into that. Francesco.
Yes, good morning. Now, Miriam, just to understand what happened before Italy blocked this request for 250,000 doses. You told me last week that AstraZeneca had withdrawn another request for export. Can you confirm that information, or is now different? And can you elaborate on that as well? Thanks.
No, I'm sorry, Francesco. We have never commented on anything else than decisions that have been taken, and we will not comment on decisions before they have been taken. And by the way, as you quite rightly said, this is a decision which was proposed and ultimately validated by Italy, which the Commission assessed as is foreseen by the regulation. And that we therefore supported. But we are not going to get into discussions as to requests that companies may or may not have made and withdrawn or not withdrawn. We are here because we apply a specific regulation, which is to assess requests that are made and communicate on the final results. Verena. Sorry, Francesco, you have a follow-up?
Mail that Miriam sent me on the 25th of February. So I just want to have that confirmed on the podium. And
well, Francesco,
there was
I'm sorry.
A withdrawal, so I just want that to be confirmed.
No,
and
sorry,
possibly
Francesco. I'm sorry. You could what you have as a conversation with anybody, I don't know, has absolutely nothing to do with what we say here on the podium. I'm sorry, that's not how the things work. We have here. You are asking a question regarding withdrawals of requests. As I say, our position is very clearly that we do not communicate on anything else than final decisions that have been taken. Verena.
Now it seems to work. Can you hear me? Super. Part of the export mechanism was that companies who seek authorization also make transparent their earlier exports to third countries in the preceding months. So I would like to know how much was that in the case of AstraZeneca? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so the information has been shared on the exports. Again, this is confidential information, and we cannot give further details.
So yes, we do have the information, but it is not something that we are communicating on. Lise.
Yes, hello. I have just one follow-up question, please. You have already answered my other questions. I wonder if you can comment on how many vaccines AstraZeneca actually still need to deliver to the EU in the first quarter. Are they on track? And I'm also thinking about the deliveries in the second quarter. If you can comment on that, please.
I'm really sorry. These are issues which we have said time and time again that we do not discuss here in the press room. Delivery schedules are things which are discussed between the member states and the companies and the Commission in the context of the steering board. Now, it is well known that we have specific discussions with AstraZeneca in particular, in order to ensure that they do comply with their commitments in the context of the advanced purchasing agreement. And these contacts are continuing. We are working to make sure that the company does deliver on these commitments, and it is quite clear, as the decision taken by the Italian authorities shows, that we are not there yet, but the dialogue continues. Naomi.
Thanks for giving me the floor, Eric. So the issue of deliveries moves on to an affair between AstraZeneca and member states after the steering board process of joint procurement. But could you tell me, so the Irish Health Minister has said that in the last week, AstraZeneca changed its delivery forecast for Ireland in the short term 3 times. So is there any coordination between different EU countries on deliveries as they're happening from AstraZeneca in case there's differential treatment from one member state to another? And then I have another question after that. Thank you.
Look, the member states meet in the steering board on a very regular basis and therefore have all options to discuss whatever they see as an appropriate response to possible evolutions in delivery schedules. I cannot comment on this here, but clearly the mechanisms are in place in order to ensure that that countries can discuss among themselves and see whether they can use flexibilities one way or another. But these are really issues that you need to take up with the member states. And you had a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So then when it comes to that coordination that does happen in the steering board between member states, can there also be discussion about shifting doses between member states potentially? If one member state is giving them out much slower and has a backlog, could they lend them to another member state and so on? Is that something that can be discussed at an EU level? Is there any proposal for a structure to do that? Or is it entirely bilateral? That is just a case of capitals having to work it out between themselves with no EU coordination. Thank you.
I believe that, as I've just said, the steering board offers the perfect context for member states to discuss these issues, but they can also do it at bilateral level. You need to remember one thing, Naomi. The European Union was there to help coordinate and lead the negotiations with the companies on the advanced purchasing agreement. As I've said multiple times, we acted as a negotiator with member states and as an investor with the EU budget in order to try to pre-finance the development and production of vaccines. But then the actual customers are the member states. They are the ones who determine with the company the doses that they receive. Now, as you know, there is a specific key that is a sort of basis for the discussion between the member state and the company. But as you know, adjustments are possible, and these adjustments are related to agreements that are then found between the member states. So from that point of view, the steering board is a perfect clearinghouse to have all of those discussions. But it's really something that is up to the member states. Josep.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the floor. So I would like to know, can you give me the information based on which did the European Commission support the decision to block the vaccine export by Italy? Do you have any information that the EU does not get its fair share of the vaccines? Because Commissioner Kyriakides said that EU has to get the fair share of the production. And another question would be, what is a fair share? Is it a stake from AstraZeneca's production or all their produced vaccines until their contract has been fulfilled?
Thank you. No, the issue is very simple. It is related to whether the member state that proposes the decision considers that the company is respecting its obligations under the advanced purchasing agreement and the order forms that are signed. And then the Commission assesses the proposed decision by the company. That is the basis for assessment. There is a sort of political statement, if you wish, that is that we, European Union, understand very clearly that nobody is safe until everybody is safe, which means that from the very beginning, we have been working on a twin-track approach, where on the one hand, we have been signing advanced purchasing agreements in order to deliver doses of vaccines to European citizens, and on the other hand, we have been leading and financing substantially, as Anna has on many occasions described here on the podium, international cooperation, in particular in the context of the ACT Accelerator and COVAX, in order to ensure that other countries can also have access to vaccines, in particular those that have less means to negotiate and purchase vaccines from those manufacturers. So this is what we say when we mean, a fair share. It's not that we are calculating, precisely on basis of a population percentage or whatever between us and other countries. It's simply to say, look, we've put in place a twin track approach. Both tracks of this approach have to work. And if at some stage it seems that a company is not fulfilling its obligations vis-à-vis us, but continuing to fulfill them vis-à-vis other contractual partners, then we have to take that into consideration. Federica.
I mean, it's the first time I ask a question. I'm not clear on these figures issue that the Commission cannot reveal. I thought we were a little bit over the transparency issue here. I mean, to evaluate, for a journalist to evaluate the fact that Italy has actually requested the withhold of the 250,000 vaccines, well, it needs also to understand the context. So I'm not clear. I think we would need a little bit more guidance on how many vaccines, how many doses have not been delivered in the first trimester, and what's the plan for the second. Even if you don't go into details, which you said belong to the steering committee, but to evaluate and assess and better understand how much AstraZeneca is behind on its promises, actually. Because this is what it boils down to, is the fact that one company is not respecting the contract and another country has got to react to that. So can you be a little bit more specific on what happened in the first trimester, which is almost finished, right, at the end of March? How much AstraZeneca in particular is behind, and what's the forecast for the second trimester? Thank you.
Thank you, Federica, and welcome to the press room. Since you say it's the first time that you ask a question, I'm very sorry, but we have had a very consistent line of not discussing figures. The one thing that is clear is that forecasts are forecasts, and that we have learned from experience all together, you and us, that we need to be extremely careful with these forecasts, because we are in the process of trying to manage an industrial process which has turned out to be extremely complex and prone to significant variations, both compared to the agreements that were signed initially, and on a day-to-day basis to the expectations of the different actors. But what is clear is that if a member state proposes a decision related to the rejection of an export authorization, it is that the company is sufficiently far from delivering on its commitments in the advanced purchasing agreement. And this, I think, is a very well-known fact in the meantime. Leah.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Leah. Yes, go ahead, Leah.
So I also have a question for Miriam, but not on the vaccine. The US has announced they would suspend the tariffs in the Airbus-Boeing dispute with the UK, and I was wondering if there was any recent discussions between the US and the EU on the same matter. I know what the EU position is on that matter, but has there been any recent sign from the US that such a suspension is also possible with the EU? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. But we have a tradition here in the press room, which is that we try to close off a chapter before we start on another one. I think it's a very useful tradition also for people who watch then the midday briefing on our audiovisual service. So we take note of your question, and we will come back to it once we have finished with the health questions. And I believe that there was also another question from Lise on trade-related issues, so we will take that one first later. Derek, est-ce que tu as une question sur les exportations de vaccins? Oui, tu peux poser ta question sur les achats de vaccins maintenant, et ensuite nous clôturons ce chapitre.
Merci beaucoup. Aujourd'hui, sur la radio RTL, Clément Beaune, le secrétaire d'État français aux affaires européennes, commentant la tentation de certains pays de l'Est de recourir aux vaccins chinois et russes, a dit « S'ils allaient chercher le vaccin chinois et ou russe, je crois que ce serait grave, ça pose un problème de solidarité, ça pose aussi un problème sanitaire. Si cela continue, on ne pourrait pas avoir à la fois le bénéfice du cadre européen et en plus aller chercher des solutions nationales dans le chacun pour soi. » Donc j'ai deux questions. Est-ce que vous aussi, vous estimez que si des pays de l'UE recourent aux vaccins russes et ou chinois, ça pose un problème sanitaire? Et est-ce que le fait de faire des commandes nationales de ces vaccins peut amener à être exclu du cadre européen ou pas, comme a l'air de le sous-entendre le ministre français?
Merci beaucoup pour ta question, Derek. Je crois que je distinguerai deux éléments. Il y a un élément juridique qui est très clair. Comme tu le sais, nous avons défini un portefeuille d'achat en commun de vaccins qui impose aux États membres qui participent à cette stratégie liée à ce portefeuille de ne pas avoir de négociations de contrats parallèles avec les entreprises faisant partie du portefeuille. Mais en dehors de ce portefeuille, les États membres ont le droit, juridiquement parlant, de se procurer des vaccins auprès d'autres fournisseurs. Et en ce qui concerne le processus d'autorisation, tu sais qu'il y a un processus européen d'autorisation des vaccins basé sur une évaluation faite par l'Agence européenne du médicament, mais qu'il existe aussi une procédure d'urgence qui permet, avec prise en charge par l'État membre concerné de l'entière responsabilité juridique en ce qui concerne ce vaccin, de se procurer des vaccins en dehors de cette autorisation de mise sur le marché par la Commission européenne basée sur une évaluation positive. Donc, d'un point de vue strictement juridique, un État membre a le droit de se procurer des vaccins dans un autre contexte dès lors qu'il respecte ces conditions. Bien entendu, la position de la Commission européenne est et reste que nous avons défini cette stratégie européenne afin de pouvoir garantir un accès à l'ensemble des États membres, pour l'ensemble des États membres, pardon, aux doses nécessaires pour vacciner l'ensemble des citoyens européens, et que nous pensons que c'est le bon cadre pour mettre en œuvre cette stratégie de vaccination. La solidarité européenne, elle s'est exprimée depuis l'Union européenne et ses États membres vers l'ensemble des États membres, et c'est dans ce cadre-là que nous essayons d'opérer au maximum. David, encore une question sur ce sujet.
Oui, je voulais vous demander une chose. Hier, on a lu sur la presse le problème des livraisons à la Pologne de la part de Astrazeneca. Maintenant, il y a d'autres pays qui signalent aussi d'autres problèmes. Au-delà de ce cas de cette société, est-ce que vous êtes à connaissance d'autres problèmes avec les autres sociétés qui font partie du portefeuille? Merci.
Merci. Écoute, comme tu le sais, nous avons des discussions extrêmement régulières, nous et les États membres, avec les entreprises. Et comme nous l'avons déjà dit à plusieurs reprises, et pour reprendre une expression un peu française, la production de vaccins n'est pas un long fleuve tranquille. Ça, c'est absolument clair. Et tu sais qu'il y a eu dans le passé des déviations par rapport au calendrier prévu. Une réponse que je te donnerai aujourd'hui pourrait ne plus être valable demain. Ce qui est clair, c'est que nous sommes en contact régulier avec les entreprises pour nous assurer qu'au-delà des aléas quotidiens qui peuvent se produire à n'importe quel moment, les objectifs de livraison, et notamment les objectifs de livraison trimestriels, sont respectés. Et c'est tout ce que je peux dire sur ce sujet. Okay, I now close this chapter and I go back to Lise, who I believe had a trade-related question. If you're still with us, Lise. Lise, go ahead. Okay, so we seem to have an issue with your mic source. Who was the other colleague who had a question on trade? Leah, we come back to you now.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So yeah, my question was about the US tariffs on Airbus-Boeing dispute. If the EU had received any sign from the US that they could make such a move, like just the one they did with the UK, since the EU has already proposed that they would suspend the tariffs for 6 months, if there had been any discussion very recently with the US. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Leah, I can only confirm that this is an ongoing issue. We have been in contact with the previous administration and, of course, with the new administration on this dispute. And what we want to achieve is a comprehensive negotiated outcome which addresses all issues to the satisfaction of both sides. And in the meantime, we believe we should mutually suspend tariffs to provide the much-needed relief to importers and to exporters.
Thank you. Are there other trade-related questions for Miriam today? Please only keep your hand raised if it's a trade-related question. Jorge, you have a trade-related question. Go ahead.
Yes, it's on this issue as well. So 2 follow-up questions. The first one on, is there any possibility, I mean, if you could tell us a bit more about the possibility of a temporary suspension of the tariffs. I mean, it is something that is inside, has the Biden administration gave any signal of this possibility? And secondly, and related to this, the UK actually suspended in December their parts of the tariffs, a sign that actually facilitated that the US suspended its part of the tariffs yesterday. So is there any possibility, any discussion on the EU side to make this first move in order to facilitate the mutual suspension of the tariffs? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I cannot further comment to what I already said on what are our intentions.
Thank you. I see no further questions on trade, so let us move on to other issues, if there are any for us today. There seem to be quite a few. James, you have the floor.
Thank you, Eric. I was wondering if there was anything you could tell us about the EU's response to the UK unilateral action in Northern Ireland. I saw an interview with Mr. Šefčovič, which said infringement procedures in the ECJ are in the post or are going to arrive soon. Is the European Commission willing to suspend parts of the trade agreement if this dispute can't be resolved? Thank you.
Well, the first thing to say is I think you have already seen a significant reaction from the European Union to the unilateral announcement by the United Kingdom. So we have not let this announcement without an answer. Whether there are any new developments that we could give you, I pass the floor to them on that.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. I think I would just recall back, James, the statement that we published. We stated very, very clearly that we will respond using the legal means that are available to us under the withdrawal agreement and the trade and cooperation agreement. Now, that internal preparatory work is ongoing on legal action as we speak, and I'd have no further date or indications to give you as to when we will come forward with that.
Thank you. Are there other questions related to EU-UK relations for Dan? Please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. Christian, tu as une question sur ce sujet?
Oui, en fait, j'ai deux questions, mais j'en profite parce que c'est quelque chose qui m'intrigue. Bonjour. Je voudrais savoir si, en fait, on ne se retrouve pas avec l'Irlande du Nord avec un trou dans le dispositif. Certaines critiques sont émises en disant que le protocole est un bricolage et qu'on a un sérieux problème avec justement le contrôle. Donc c'est le commentaire. Mon autre question est plus affaires étrangères avec Hong Kong. Merci.
Y a-t-il un trou dans la raquette, Dan?
Bonjour Christian, merci pour ta question. La réponse c'est non. Le protocole c'est la loi applicable en Irlande du Nord depuis le 1er janvier 2021. Nous sommes dans un esprit constructif, disons, avec le Royaume-Uni pour trouver des solutions aux problèmes qui existent en ce moment. Si tu veux regarder, la semaine dernière, nous avons eu le comité conjoint avec le Royaume-Uni pour essayer un peu de trouver ces solutions. C'est vrai que maintenant, à partir de mercredi, on est dans une différente situation. Quand même, la communication existe toujours entre nous et le Royaume-Uni. Nous sommes toujours dans cet esprit de trouver des solutions, même si c'est plus difficile maintenant. Mais sur le reste, le protocole est là. Le protocole est là pour essayer de protéger le Good Friday Agreement en Irlande du Nord, pour éviter une frontière dure sur l'île et pour protéger la coopération nord-sud sur l'île de l'Irlande.
Catherine, you have a question on this issue.
Yes, the question is the matter that is the subject of this unilateral action by the UK is the extension of some of the grace periods, as far as I understand. And I'm just wondering, the breach in process aside, is the European Commission given to agreeing to that? If you know, in practical terms, and is the legal action really concerning the failure to follow the procedure? Thank you.
Dan.
Catherine, I think for that we need to step back a little bit in history, back to December 2020, when we worked extremely hard with the UK to find solutions to the array of different issues that the UK was facing regarding the implementation of the protocol on the 1st of January. We found those solutions. You remember that we came forward with a whole range of different solutions, including for certain grace periods for the implementation of the new rules in Northern Ireland. For that, I think it's fair to say we showed a huge amount of constructive flexibility, solution-led processes and an approach. Now, again, we're faced with the same question from the UK side. We said, and this goes back already now a couple of weeks, that we're willing to work on this. We're willing to find further solutions. For that, though, we also need the UK to do its homework and to follow up on its promises to implement the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And even if you look back to the last joint committee meeting, which was only last week, the UK again committed jointly to implement in full the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland. And again, we reiterated that we were willing to find solutions to some of the outstanding issues. For that, I think, as Vice President Šefčovič says, this is a two-way street. It requires the UK also to do its side of implementation, and for that we will be following that extremely closely.
To be crystal clear, there are practical steps which the United Kingdom is supposed to implement that are related to the agreements that we found in December. And if people are talking about us trying to find an agreement on prolonging the grace periods, which must be a joint decision in the context of the joint committee, the UK also has to do its homework on those practical steps that it has to implement, that it should have implemented already some time ago for some of them, and that it has committed to deliver very quickly on the others. You know what those are, and we are looking to the UK to respect and to implement those commitments. Sure.
Catherine, I just want to mention one thing that I forgot to say already. I think it's important to underline again, we're aware of the issues that businesses are facing in Northern Ireland. We have spoken to businesses and civil society in Northern Ireland and also in Ireland over the past couple of days. Vice President Šefčovič had these roundtable meetings. We will continue speaking to stakeholders and businesses in Northern Ireland over the coming weeks. This is a really important part of what we're doing, and the events over the past 48 hours doesn't change our commitment to speaking to people in Northern Ireland and listening to their experiences. So just to underline again, we're perfectly aware of the issues that people are faced with, and we are trying our best to be constructive to find solutions. But for that, of course, it requires commitment as well from the UK.
Thank you. Okay, we can now move on to other issues. I believe, Giorgio, you had asked for the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is on Alitalia. It's a competition-stated question. There was this morning a meeting between Commissioner Vestager and Italian ministers for economy, industry and transport. So I would like to ask you whether Prime Minister Mario Draghi also joined that conversation. And I would also like to know whether the two decisions on previous loans to Alitalia, which were announced and were supposed to be presented soon, will maybe come after there is an agreement on the new Alitalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Arianna.
Good morning, Giorgio. So the meeting this morning was with Mr. Daniele Franco, Minister of Economy and Finance of Italy, Mr. Giancarlo Giorgetti, Minister of Economic Development of Italy, and Enrico Giovannini, Minister of Infrastructure and Transport of Italy. So the Prime Minister did not participate to the call. Concerning the investigations you were asking about, they are ongoing, and I fear we cannot prejudge their timing or outcome, of course.
Thank you. I see a certain number of Italian hands which have been raised in the last 10 seconds. I assume they are on the same issue or on competition issues regarding Italy. Tommaso.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. It's a competition-related question, but not on Alitalia, because if I'm not mistaken, in the last days we had the judgment by the European Court of Justice on Tercas. They finally decided that the intervention of the Fondo Interbancario di Tutela dei Depositi, which is a mutual fund financed by private banks, was not state aid. It was a long-awaited judgment. In Italy, there are also people who say now we will sue the Commission because they did the wrong thing. I wonder if competition has anything to say about this important judgment. Thank you.
Arianna.
So, Tommaso, indeed, we had the judgment on Tercas. We have taken note of the judgment by the Court of Justice, which upheld the judgment of the General Court of March 2019 in this case, in the Tercas case. The General Court had annulled the Commission's decision of 23 December 2015 concerning measures in favor of Banca Tercas. And now we will, of course, carefully study the judgment and reflect on the implications. On, well, you were mentioning comments. Of course, we don't comment on comments. What I can add is that in general, it is up to the applicants to claim damages and to bring damages actions. In this context, it is up to the applicants to prove the existence of direct link between the Commission's actions, decisions, and the possible damages suffered, as well as the fulfillment of other legal requirements. Of course, the 2015 decision by the Commission in the Tercas case, after this decision by the Commission in the Tercas case, the voluntary mechanism of a group of Italian banks decided to intervene in favor of Banca Tercas, and the Commission did not raise objections in relation to this intervention. Economically, this step had the same outcome for Banca Tercas and its buyer, Banca Popolare di Bari, as the support measure by the mandatory deposit guarantee scheme. And this intervention had already been in preparation when the Commission actually took its decision in the Tercas case.
Thank you. David, question concurrence.
Oui, très rapidement, merci. À l'Italia, de nouveau. Arianna, je voulais savoir si c'est normal ou c'est possible, aussi légalement, que une enquête sur un sujet, donc les deux prêts à l'Italia, soit liée à un autre cas, donc l'intervention publique pour créer une nouvelle entreprise.
Arianna.
Bonjour David. Donc je voudrais clarifier les enquêtes qu'on a en cours, c'est des cas ouverts. Les deux prêts de 600 et 300 millions d'euros ont été notifiés à la Commission et on a ouvert une procédure formelle d'examen en 2018 et en 2020 on a ouvert une deuxième procédure formelle concernant un troisième prêt de 400 millions d'euros et que l'Italie avait accordé à l'Italie en 2019. Et ça, c'est des cas ouverts qui sont en cours et comme je dis, on ne peut pas préjuger le résultat et le timing de la décision. L'autre question que tu as fait, en général, comme on a déjà dit plusieurs fois dans la salle de presse, on est en contact avec l'Italie, donc je ne peux rien ajouter pour l'instant à propos de ça.
Merci. Giorgio, une autre question concurrence. Another competition question.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Désolé, c'est encore un follow-up sur Alitalia, mais c'est juste voilà, pour bien comprendre en fait le lien possible entre les deux autres enquêtes que, comme Arianna vient de dire, sont encore en cours et la nationalisation de Alitalia et la nouvelle Alitalia. En fait, la seule question que je me pose, mais vraiment au niveau juridique, c'est est-ce qu'il faut trancher d'abord la question de la continuité économique pour après pouvoir prendre une décision sur les prêts précédents, ou est-ce que vous confirmez que ce sont deux enquêtes totalement séparées et que voilà, donc les deux enquêtes en cours, elles n'ont rien à voir avec le dialogue qui est en cours maintenant sur la création de la nouvelle Alitalia. Merci.
Arianna.
Comme je viens de dire, on a des cas ouverts que c'est sur l'investigation sur les 1 milliard 100 millions d'euros à l'Italia. Les autres discussions sont en cours. C'est pas de procédure liée nécessairement, mais clairement, je ne peux pas préjuger le timing. Donc, c'est vraiment difficile de vous répondre avec plus d'informations maintenant.
Merci beaucoup. Je ne vois pas d'autres questions concurrence et donc nous revenons à Christian qui avait une question sur les affaires extérieures.
Oui, bonjour. Le service d'action extérieure vient de publier un communiqué qui est une mise en garde assez ferme à Pékin sur la réforme du système électoral à Hong Kong qui est en train d'être préparée. Et dans cette mise en garde, on rappelle une position de l'Union européenne qui est d'ajouter des mesures supplémentaires. Alors, ma question est très simple. Je voudrais savoir si des sanctions sont prévues. Je sais que le régime des sanctions est sur la table depuis décembre au regard de la dégradation de la situation à Hong Kong et même au regard de la situation des droits de l'homme en Chine. Donc je voudrais savoir si ces sanctions sont prévues, si on considère que la limitation des exportations de biens pouvant être utilisés pour réprimer les manifestations était effectivement une sanction. Et dernière question, puisque M. Borrell nous a annoncé qu'il était capable de prendre ce genre d'initiative, comme jusqu'à présent aucun État membre n'a proposé de faire adopter ou de faire discuter des sanctions au sein de l'instance des ministres des Affaires étrangères, est-ce que M. Borrell, de son propre chef, serait en mesure de proposer des sanctions? Quelles seraient-elles? Et pour conclure, s'il n'y a pas de sanctions, à quoi ça sert de protester? Excusez-moi, mais si on n'a pas le courage de parler la langue du pouvoir, comme le dit M. Borrell, on se tait. Merci.
Je passe la parole à Nabila.
Merci beaucoup, Christian, pour ta question. Je pense que la mise en garde ou le statement qu'on vient, ou la déclaration qu'on vient de publier est assez explicite ici dans cette déclaration. On dit que au cas où il y aurait justement cette réforme électorale du système de Hong Kong, les ministres des Affaires étrangères, je répète, sont prêts à prendre des mesures ou à prendre plutôt avoir une réponse qui sera beaucoup plus avoir une réponse par rapport à cette décision. Donc je ne pense pas à ce stade, et je sais que je vais probablement te décevoir, je ne pense pas que je vais pouvoir anticiper quelles seraient ces mesures. Mais tout ce que je peux te dire et répéter, c'est que nous nous tenons prêts à les prendre si la situation se justifie. Et pour l'instant, ce n'est pas le cas.
Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions affaires extérieures pour Nabila aujourd'hui? Christian, une question de suivi.
Oui, parce que je comprends la prudence de Nabila, mais dire, des mesures supplémentaires, on en parle depuis le mois de décembre. Depuis le mois de décembre, pratiquement tous les militants et les figures de proue de l'opposition démocratique à Hong Kong ont été arrêtés, condamnés à des peines très sévères, sous le coup d'une loi sécuritaire qui a été dénoncée par l'Union européenne. Je veux dire, il faut arrêter les palidonies. C'est ridicule de dire on est prêt à prendre des mesures supplémentaires. D'ordinaire, vous nous dites les sanctions font partie de l'option. Après, on connaît la règle. Elles doivent être présentées par les États membres, il doit y avoir unanimité pour qu'elles soient adoptées. Mais au moins dites-nous qu'elles sont prêtes, sinon ça ne sert à rien. Enfin franchement, des mesures supplémentaires, jusqu'à présent les mesures qu'on a prises, c'était la limitation de certains biens pour les manifestations et un soutien à la société civile. Le soutien à la société civile, ils n'ont même pas été capables de défendre les gens qui ont été arrêtés. Donc là, j'ai un vrai problème, j'ai un vrai malaise sur la position de l'Union européenne, parce que d'un côté, on parle de sanctions, mais on n'ose pas le dire publiquement. Alors, je sais que ça gêne beaucoup d'États membres face à Pékin, mais appelons un chat, quoi, s'il vous plaît.
Écoute, Christian, là, je crois qu'on est rentré dans un débat où tu nous exprimes ta position, qui est certainement parfaitement légitime, mais je ne pense pas que Nabila puisse rajouter quoi que ce soit à ce qu'elle a dit jusqu'à maintenant. Donc, à toi d'en tirer les conséquences qui te semblent appropriées. Nous pensons que l'action de l'Union européenne dans le cadre de ses relations avec la Chine a été expliquée à de très nombreuses reprises ici en salle de presse. C'est une action qui va continuer, un débat qui va continuer aussi, mais je ne pense pas qu'aujourd'hui elle puisse te dire autre chose que ce qu'elle a déjà répondu sur le podium. Merci. Je ne vois pas d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui et donc il me reste à vous souhaiter un excellent week-end. Rappeler à ceux d'entre vous encore une dernière fois qui n'ont pas renouvelé leur demande d'accréditation de le faire le plus rapidement possible et nous nous reverrons lundi prochain pour le prochain Midday Briefing. Merci.